everyone, it's Michelle Caruana from Play Cafe Academy, and something that I'm going to be doing a lot more of on this channel is featuring other indoor playground owners and really highlighting their spaces, because I've heard from you guys and I appreciate all of the comments and feedback and suggestions so much, but I've heard from you guys again and again that you love hearing perspectives that are different from my own, because something that I think is so beautiful about this industry is that a play cafe or an indoor playground can take so many different forms and so many different shapes. And I think that's really beautiful. And I'm going to start sharing, again, other perspectives, other spaces, other owners, because we all came into this industry a different way. We all have different experiences and backgrounds and perspectives. So in this first video, I'm going to talk to Betsy from Backyard Play Cafe, and she is one of my Playmaker Society members. We are so lucky to have her. And something that I love about Betsy's space is it's so different from anything that I've experienced in terms of my own ownership journey. Our space was very imaginative, and as you'll see, Betsy's space is completely different. And I am really excited for you to hear this interview from Betsy because, again, her experience in the industry is so different from my own. So she's going to give you some really great perspective, and she answers all of my burning questions, including the advice that she would give herself if she was starting over again, and the advice that she would give to other people entering the industry. So as soon as you're done watching this video, I linked all of the Backyard Play Cafe social media and website. So feel free to head over to their website, check them out, and show them some love. All right, without further ado, here is my interview with Betsy. Hi there, thank you so much for joining me today. I am really excited for this. So let's start this video off with letting everybody know who you are, what your business name is, and where in the world you're located.
Okay, great. My name is Betsy Brambeck, and my husband and I own a play cafe called Backyard Play Cafe in Dickinson, North Dakota.
Awesome. So what was the inspiration behind your business? Because everybody always has something that kind of gave them the idea to open a play space or kind of got their idea going.
Right. Well, we live in North Dakota where the weather is pretty unpredictable most of the time, and it can be boiling hot outside, crazy windy, or it could be way below freezing. And my husband and I like to travel quite a bit. And when we would travel with our kids, we would always look for a play cafe to kind of take our kids to take a break from whatever. And we just thought, wouldn't that be great if we had a place like that in our own community where parents could take their kids to play anytime they wanted to, regardless of how cold it was outside or how hot it was outside. And essentially, we just wanted to create the place where we would want to take our kids and provide that to our community as well.
That's amazing. And it's actually similar to my own story, because the first time I had ever been to a play cafe, it was while I was traveling. I wasn't even aware at the time that it was a concept because I only had one 8-month-old child. So I was just kind of breaking into the whole parenting role. And so that's really funny that we kind of have that similar story. So
my husband had the same reaction. He was like, what even is this? I'm like, these are so great. Like, they're so great. And now, like, every time we travel, we always look for, is there a play place? Is there a children's museum? Where can we take our kids to take a break?
Yep, we do the same thing. We were just traveling all down the East Coast. We went to New York City, we went to North Carolina, South Carolina, and exactly what you said, that was like the first thing I did when I planned out our trip. So we tried to visit as many as possible, but we were like actually planning a lot of our destinations around how many, what there was for kids to do.
Right.
So it's great that you were able
I think a lot of parents do that.
Yep. And it's great that you were able to kind of create your own destination because your area was lacking that space. So I'm going to provide lots of pictures for everybody watching the video, and I'm going to link to your website and social media. But can you just describe your space just in a couple sentences?
Yeah, we're basically like 50% play, 50% coffee. The space we're in right now is divided right in half. And so the first half is just like your typical kind of coffee shop. We have great, comfortable places for people to sit. A full coffee bar. It looks just like a coffee shop when you walk in, but when you go in a little bit further, we have a playground that was designed by Orca Coast specifically for our space that we have. And so it's rated for ages 6 months to 12 years old. And there's a section for smaller kids, and basically it's an indoor playground. We've got some great places for parents to sit while their kids play. And they can actually sit in the coffee side, like, and see their kids playing. So it's pretty great.
Awesome. So when you say, it's like a true indoor playground, would you
Mhm.
say that you guys kind of focus on like gross motor play, fine motor skills, or is it a combination of both?
Well, our playground would be primarily the gross motor, but we do monthly sensory play dates where
Okay.
we provide sensory exploration opportunities, arts and crafts, where we really can. One of the things that we want to do with our space is support early childhood education, especially in our community. There aren't as many options, I think, for people as there are in larger metros. And it's kind of a passion of mine. And I like every time I'm creating an event, I'm always thinking of what would I want my children to be able to do. And I want to provide that same opportunity for other parents. So our regular play is definitely that gross motor, like slides, climbing,
Yeah, and I
tumbling.
guess I guess when I said that, I said fine motor play and things like that, but I really more meant like imaginative, because I found that a lot of indoor playgrounds kind of fall into one of two categories where they're
Yes.
primarily imaginative, which is what my space kind of was, and then or on the flip side, a lot of spaces are primarily gross motor. So it sounds like you have a mix, but kind of focused on that gross motor.
Yeah, it's definitely more gross motor. Like I love the idea of creating like a little tiny town. I have dreams of expanding and having like a section where that is a part of our play space, but right now it's just the gross motor. Yeah.
Well, when I had our little tiny village, I dreamed of having a big climbing structure where the kids could get out some of their energy when they were
Yeah,
going absolutely crazy. So it's funny how it, it's kids really need a combination of both, which is why I think
absolutely.
it's so great that there are many different places, at least in my community. There are some that have imaginative, some that have gross motor. So we're lucky to live in an area where we have kind of a mix.
Yeah,
Um,
definitely.
but yeah, my kids right now are very into gross motor stuff. So they would, that's one of the reasons I always tell people that, when I opened Climbing Vines, I knew right away that eventually I would want to sell it just because I have two boys. And I just knew that as soon as they outgrew the space, I wouldn't enjoy it anymore. So
Right.
now we take them to like the big climbing indoor
Yep,
playground.
absolutely.
So you already described a little bit of your passion and what brought you to this industry. And that's something that I love about this industry so much, is that so many of the business owners, I would say a vast majority of the business owners, are parents, and parents who
Yeah.
understand exactly what the community needs, what kids need. So you already alluded to this a little bit, but does your business have a specific mission, or is there a certain void or something that you kind of seek to fill in your community?
Um, yeah, I mean, a big goal that we have is to help create community. I'm not originally from North Dakota. My husband's family is. And one thing that I noticed when I moved here is that if you don't know anyone, it can be kind of isolating. And I actually hear that from a lot of parents who are like, I don't know anyone here. And I met somebody here, and now we're going to have a play date together next week too. Like I just have this dream of creating a space where parents can meet other parents and hopefully cultivate friendships, because parenting can be so lonely if you don't have your tribe. And if you're not from North Dakota, it's quite possible that you don't have your tribe here. Your tribe might be, thousands of miles away. So that's a big passion of mine, just in creating community for parents, but then also, like I said, really supporting early childhood education and providing opportunities for sensory play, which is such a huge need for kids these days who are so screen bound. So,
Awesome. So we talked about your mission. We talked about the basics of your space. Is there anything that really makes your space unique that when parents walk in, they say like, wow, or that's notable about your space that you're really proud of?
I would say two things. First, we take cleanliness so seriously. We have 90-minute play sessions at our cafe, and then we close our playground for half an hour in between each session. And our staff actually goes through and like hand scrubs everything. We spray with a sanitizing spray so that you know when you bring your kids here, it's going to be clean. And I always say, like, I'm kind of like ick about germs. So if I would let my kid touch it, you can trust it. You can let your kid touch it too. The other part I think is that we've been told we're a little extra. We kind of go above and beyond. Like we really want to make sure that if you come to one of our special events, you're going to get blown away, that you're going to see the value for your money and that your kid is going to have an amazing experience. So we always try to go a little bit above and beyond, over the top. We started dabbling in lots of different balloons, and we just made like an 8-foot photo backdrop for our Halloween sensory event where parents could take pictures, and we still have it up. People are like, ah, they're so like surprised, I think, that we put so much time and energy into our events for children. So
I love that. So you mentioned parties, you mentioned balloons, you mentioned coffee, you mentioned open play. You guys have a lot going on in your space, clearly. I know I didn't put this in the questions that I was going to ask you, but would you say that you kind of focus on one area the most? I know for us, it was always birthday parties, but would you say there's kind of one standout side of your business that you guys really focus a lot of time and energy on, or is it kind of spread across the board?
Um, I mean, the nice thing about doing a gross motor like playground is that it kind of runs itself. It's a little bit different from like the imaginative, like we don't have to reset every time. I would say our primary focus is on birthday parties, really trying to create like a custom experience for our clients and our sensory play dates, really making sure that those events are like, wow, when you come to one of these, like we're hoping to try to cultivate like just like a desire, like as soon as we start advertising, we want it to be sold out. Like that's how great we want our events to be perceived in the community. So we focus a lot of time and energy into creating those, making sure it's a great experience.
That's awesome. And I love that people notice your attention to detail because I've been to so many. I just talked about this on YouTube actually. If by the time this is airing, it will have been a couple weeks ago, but we go to so many events in my area that are either free or, very inexpensive. And you can just tell that it's a little bit disjointed. It's very crowded. It's very chaotic. And I always can tell and I always take notice when an owner puts a lot of time, energy, thoughtfulness into events. And I really appreciate it as a parent. And I'm definitely willing to pay a premium price for it just because it is rare.
Right. I agree. And I think we've learned so much in the year that we've been open. Like we just did our second Halloween event, and we were kind of looking back to go, wow, like we have gotten so good at organizing these events and deciding what we're going to do and making sure we're utilizing our downtime to prep things. And we didn't feel the stress of the event at all because we were so organized and so prepared. But that comes with learning. Like you figure out what works and what doesn't.
Yeah, and I found that it's very different depending on your space, depending on your location, depending on your clientele. It's so funny inside the Playmaker Society group. Some events work for some businesses, some don't. Some are smashing hits for some, they flop for others. So I find that it's so interesting and it's so unique that a lot of these classes and events are really specific to the space, to the owner. I know that as an owner, I was not very creative. That wasn't my strength. I came from a business background. So I had to outsource a lot of our event planning, and I still think that they could have been a lot better. I definitely had to lean on a lot of support for that. But just out of curiosity, because it sounds like you said, you have such a passion for early education. What is your background that you had before this business?
So I was a second career teacher. I worked in project management right out of college for an insurance company, and but my passion was always education. And so I went when I moved to North Dakota. I got my teaching license in North Dakota and taught here for the past 10 years. And I taught all last year while we were open. And this coming school year, I decided to take a step away to really focus on my family and our business and just really give our business the care that I felt like it needed and actually sleep at night instead of working all day at a school and then coming to the cafe and working and not sleeping very much at all. So my background is education and I have 4 kids. So I'm kind of like, it's definitely a passion of mine. And I see the benefits. I taught middle school English.
Okay.
And my master's degree is in adolescent literacy. And I kind of learned a lot about the importance of early childhood education when I was getting my master's degree. And I could see like which kids, like you could definitely tell they had a strong foundation from early on and which kids maybe didn't. So it's always been something very important to me.
Great. Well, congratulations, first of all, for making the full-time switch. I know can be scary. I know it can be difficult, but it's so great that you're able to take that passion for education and still serve your community just in a different way through your business instead of teaching. So I think that's awesome. So while we're kind of talking about your space, is there anything else you'd like to share? Anything about how many square feet is your space? I just always like to ask that, like approximately.
Ooh, that's a good question. I want to say it's maybe close to 2,000, but I would have to double check. Like my husband Lane knows all of like the detail stuff like that.
Yeah, no problem. An approximation is just fine.
Yeah.
So what made you, and again, this isn't a question that I prepared you for, but what made you want to have a coffee side? Was it something that you're passionate about? Did you have you ever worked in coffee before? Was there a big learning curve? Like, just tell me a little bit about that process.
Okay. I am from Oregon originally, and I like to say that I kind of grew up with a mocha in hand because we started drinking coffee pretty early there. And it was like every day, like you just go get a coffee on your way to school. And so I am a little bit of a coffee snob. I will fully admit that. And my husband is as well. So it was kind of a big deal for us to make sure that when we opened our cafe, that we were also very dedicated to good coffee. And the biggest thing in our cafe is consistency. Like we want to make sure that no matter what, you're going to get a great cup of coffee every single time, because I can't tell you, like, I'm sure you know, you go through a drive-through and sometimes your latte is great and sometimes it is not. And it really stinks when you spend, $6 on a latte and you don't want to drink it. So having good coffee, having good equipment, having good beans is super important to us. I've never worked in coffee, so it's been a super learning curve for me, but we have great people working for us who have extensive coffee background, and that's been like priceless in our business. So
Awesome. Yeah, I love Dunkin' Donuts. I know that that's not like considered a premier coffee shop, but they are very inconsistent, I have to say. You would think that a chain would be very consistent. So honestly, several years ago, I just started drinking black coffee because I couldn't take the inconsistency.
Right.
I couldn't deal with it. So because I would get so frustrated, I just went to black coffee, but that's just a little random side note because that is a huge frustration of mine. So
Yes.
it's good to hear that that's something that you're prioritizing. So just a little bit more about your menu. Do you serve ice drinks, frozen drinks, blended drinks? Just tell me a little bit more about what's on your menu and if you serve any food or snacks or anything like that.
Yeah, we source our beans from a local roastery, local in North Dakota. They're in Fargo, and we were very fortunate to have a partnership with them, and they kind of helped us design our menu. So we have a full coffee menu. Like if you want a cappuccino, you can get a cappuccino. If you want a real macchiato, we'll make you a real macchiato. We also have fraps. We also have tea. We just started serving, I would say about 6 months ago, we started serving Lotus Energy, which is like a natural version of a Red Bull Zinger. I don't know if that's in North Dakota. Red Bull Zingers are pretty popular, and the Lotus is based from the coffee bean and not chemicals. So that's kind of something that no one else in our town has, is the Lotus Energy. We do an amazing espresso milkshake, which is basically like dessert in a cup. It's so delicious. But yeah, we have basically a full coffee bar. We partner with a local baker. She is out of Gladstone, which is not too far from us, and she makes cookies and muffins for us and delivers those. So we always have fresh cookies and muffins, and we have a wide variety of allergen friendly snacks. So that's something that in our community, where if a kid is allergic to milk or allergic to nuts or is gluten free, you might have a hard time finding treats for them. And so we have a wide range of arrangement of allergen-free candy, and most of our snacks are gluten-free, nut-free.
Awesome. I love that. And that was something that was a huge priority for us as well. We have a very large community in our area with food sensitivities, and it's something that is very frequently talked about. When I was reading through like the reviews of some of we didn't have any really close competitors when we opened, but like the larger children's museums or anything like that, or like even Chuck E. Cheese, a frequent complaint was that there was nothing for people with food sensitivities or food allergies,
Right.
or anything healthy, more natural, any of those types of options. So that became a huge priority for us. And I think parents appreciated it. It sounds like you're having the same experience.
Yeah, we definitely do. We always try to offer like a dairy-free option. Like when we're making snacks for our events, we always try to think, what can we make dairy-free? What can we make gluten-free? And we try to offer that to parents as well. And we have some parents who kids have milk allergies, and they're like, this is the only place where I can trust that she can have the cookie too. I can say yes to it instead of saying, no, you can't have that. So that's pretty special to us as well.
That's great. So, kind of thinking back, because I know you've been open a year and I know you were working on it for quite a while before that,
Mhm.
but if you could talk to somebody right now, someone listening who's very likely listening, what would you say to them if they're venturing into or considering opening an indoor play space? Do you have any advice or just words of wisdom or anything like that?
I would say plan for downtime, plan for a slow season, plan for if you plan for that, then you don't have to feel like you need to compromise anything. I think if you really think about like, what is the value I'm providing to my community, really, think through your pricing and make sure that you believe it's fair, that you believe that what a customer is going to receive is worth the price that they're going to pay, and that you would stand behind it. And then plan so that if you do have a month where it's slow, it's not going to make you panic, where you feel like, oh, maybe I need to change my pricing, or I should, don't compromise what you create, and plan so that you don't have to.
Yeah, I always found that I did my worst creative work and I just was not pleasant to be around when I felt panicky or when I felt like my back was against the wall. So I love that you mentioned that, because it's very difficult to operate as a business when your back is against the wall, when you are, you know, wondering how you're going to pay that next bill. So planning ahead and having that little, just knowing that you're going to have those months and planning ahead for it, I think
Yeah.
is great advice. Is there anything, one part of the process that was for opening that was extra difficult, or was there like, was it choosing a space? Was it coming up with the menu and name? Like, was there one part of the process that really stood out to you as a little bit more difficult?
Um, I think we're finding now that we might have jumped into our space too soon. When we think about like the things that are holding us back, it's mostly connected to our space and what we can and cannot do. And so I kind of wish that we would have done a little more hunting for a better space that fit our business model better. Because I feel like we've kind of squeezed ourselves into this space and it works, but had we been in a different location, we might be able to do more things. I also feel like we still struggle a little bit with marketing. I feel like that is such a huge thing for small businesses, and it's hard. It's hard to get your name out. We live in a small-ish community. I think there's like 18,000, 19,000 people here. And every week I have new people come in who say, I didn't even know you were here. And I think that's having a comprehensive plan. I wish I would have done more before we opened to kind of establish like, what are we going to do to market? Word of mouth is great, but it's not, you can't rely on that to sustain your business. Yeah, I think those would be the two things, is like really making sure the space is going to fit and allow you to grow. We're actually looking at expanding now because we know that we've already outgrown our space and the limitations to our business are tied directly to our space. So I would say before you settle on something, ask yourself if that's going to work for you in 5 years, because you don't want to have to move if you don't have to.
Yeah, we had a very similar experience where we outgrew our space. We needed to have multiple parties at the same time. We needed to be able to do parties during open hours. The demand was just greater than what we could provide in that space. So I definitely relate. And I think it was a little bit due to my excitement. I think it was a little bit due to, just being impatient. I'm a little
Right.
bit impulsive at times. So I think I just got so excited and I signed a lease that was really expensive and it was a really small space. So I can completely appreciate.
Yeah, we're in the same boat where I feel like, oh man, I wish we would have just spent one more month just really looking before we settled on a space that we were now stuck in. So
Yeah, but I mean, to be honest, that's a good problem to have. Of all of the problems that you could be having, outgrowing space is one of the better ones, I guess I
it's a
would.
good one. Yeah.
Yeah, but those are great words of advice for somebody looking to venture into this business. And I say the same thing to people all the time because, like I said, I had the same issue. I jumped the gun with our space way too early. So, kind of looking back at yourself when you started the planning process, do you have any words that you would tell yourself as you look back at must have been like about 2 years ago, probably, where you started
Yeah.
during this process? Do you have any words that you would tell yourself?
I think I wish that I would have just trusted myself a little bit more. I always kind of feel worried that maybe it's not going to be good enough, or I worry that people aren't going to see the value, or that what I think is really great, someone else is going to be like, no, that's garbage. So I have a little bit of like, I don't want to say it's self-esteem because I don't think that's it, but I always am a little like second guessing the decisions that I make. And so I wish that, especially at the beginning, I wish I would have been just a little more confident in, yes, this is good. This is going to be great. I was worried about that. And I still worry, like, especially if we have an event and like, we only have 50% of capacity filled, then I think, oh no, what did we do? When I just need to trust that what I'm doing is great and that they will come. It'll be okay.
Yeah, absolutely. And that's actually one of the reasons I had the exact same experience. And that's one of the reasons why I created Playmaker Society, because I love that everyone can bounce ideas off of each other and get reassurance and get ideas of what's working for other people. Because I think
Yeah.
it's so, people that open these types of businesses are so passionate and they're so they're so deep into what they want to provide the community that they do have that second guessing. They are unsure that other people are going to be as invested or like you said, see that same value. So that's one of the reasons that I created the group, and now it's just kind of grown. So are you finding collaborating with other owners helpful in that?
It's one of my favorite things. Like I kind of joke to my employees. I'm like, well, one of the playmakers, blah, 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 blah. And I said, I'm interviewing with the queen playmaker today. And they were like, oh my gosh. Because I talk all the time about like, well, Alicia's doing this, or, and like, I know these ladies by name, even though I don't know them. But there's definitely things where I'm like, well, one playmaker had this problem and this is what they did. So let's try this. Absolutely use the group for inspiration and also kind of like affirmation. Like, I'm doing okay. I'm not the only one who's dealing with this, and it's going to be all right.
Yeah, that's exactly what my goal was when I started. So I'm happy to hear that because this business, like you said, just like parenting, owning a business like this can be really lonely because it's difficult to collaborate with people in your area, especially if they're your competition. It's just nice
Absolutely.
to connect
We
with
have
your
no one else in our area that has a similar business, but in the last year, we have lots of copycats popping up. Like we just had someone who they're offering a drop-off event and they're charging like hardly any money for it. And I just said, don't worry about it. We know that what we are doing is worth the money and it's like, we're fine. We don't need to compete with anybody else. But it's definitely isolating when you don't have like people who understand like what you're trying to do.
Yep, absolutely. And, a lot of times I would really only have, when I was operating the business, I would only really have customers to talk to. And as their hearts are in the right place, but a lot of times, they have a hard time equating their experience as a customer with what you need to do as a business. So
Right.
sometimes it's just nice to, like you said, talk to people on our side of the desk because we understand what goes into the business, what goes into the costs and operating and the
Absolutely.
mental toll it can take. So I love having the group and I'm so glad that that's helping in that regard.
Yeah, absolutely.
Awesome. So is there anything else you want to share about your space or anything before we wrap up?
Um, I don't know. I think I'm excited to see how other playmakers grow and how we grow over the next few years. And I think that the business that we're in, the industry that we're in is so important. And I think it's undervalued. Um, and I just hope that especially as we move into like a new normal with COVID and things like that, that people appreciate the space that we provide. And I don't know, that's about it.
And owners. I hope they start
Yes,
appreciating local business owners, not just in the indoor playground industry, but in all small local family-owned businesses. I think that
absolutely.
I hope that people continue supporting small business, shopping locally, visiting. Um, but I have seen a lot of people in the group definitely start rebounding. So it's good to see that communities are starting to hopefully value these kinds of spaces more now that they've gone without them for so long. But that was a
Yes.
great note to end on.
And I think just, appreciating like what the people in your community are trying to do. Like every small, it's hard to have a brick and mortar business. It is really hard. And having the support of your community is so important. Like we can't survive if our community doesn't support us. So
Yeah, well, thank you so much for letting us into your space and sharing a little
absolutely.
bit about your background and your journey. It was such a pleasure to see your space and get a chance to talk with you.
Absolutely. Thank you so much.